The concrete slammed into my knees hard enough to send a shockwave up my femurs. I didn't grunt. I never gave Caleb the satisfaction of a sound. Hold him, Olivia snapped. Her voice wasn't the one she used when we were alone, the one that softened at the edges after a long day. This was her boardroom voice. Cold, clipped, the voice she used to fire people or bully suppliers. Keep his head down. 2 sets of hands. Beltran and Soto, the new security hires, dug into my biceps. Beltran's thumb pressed into the groove of my rotator cuff, trying to find the nerve cluster that would make my arm go numb. I kept my core tight. I wouldn't give them the slack they needed to force my face into the floor. Across the room, the red lights on the PTZ cameras blinked steadily. Good. Let them record. Let the whole goddamn Department of Defense see this. Caleb Reed crouched in front of me. He smelled like that overpriced cologne Olivia bought him for his birthday last month. Some woody bullshit that cost more than my monthly mortgage. He tilted his head, a mock pout on his clean-shaven face. Look at you, Nathan. Chief engineer, my ass. You're just a glitch in the system now. Get up, I said, low enough that only he could hear. Or I'll show you exactly what kind of glitch can reroute your carotid artery. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. He was rattled. He should be. The Ares drone demonstration had just nosedived. Literally. Because he'd changed the lateral drift parameters in the nav core without understanding the harmonic feedback loop. He'd wanted the landing to look smoother for the generals. Instead, it nearly took out a convoy of Humvees. You're done, Caleb whispered. He shifted his weight and drove the toe of his Italian loafer into the back of my knee. Pain lanced through the joint. My left leg buckled completely, and I went down harder. My chin hit the floor. I tasted blood. Soto planted a heavy palm on the back of my neck, grinding my cheekbone into the grit of the unfinished concrete. Olivia, I managed, turning my head just enough to see her stilettos. You're making a mistake. She stepped into my peripheral vision. Her shadow swallowed me. She was wearing the dark blue Armani suit. The power suit, she called it. I'd paid for it. The only mistake was letting you anywhere near the core code after I put Caleb in charge, she said. Her tone was flat, devoid of the warmth she'd shown me this morning when she asked me to make her coffee. You're compromised, Nathan. Jealousy is a hell of a drug. Caleb changed the parameters, I said, forcing the words past the pressure on my throat. Log the access. Check the server timestamps. It's his credential ID all over it. We don't have time for an audit, Olivia shot back. She was looking at the one-way glass where the DoD liaisons were watching. She was worried about optics. Always the optics. If this gets out as a system failure, we lose the contract. If it's a rogue engineer, we manage the PR. It's not a rogue engineer, I growled. It's a thief and a liar. I tried to push up, but Soto increased the pressure. My ears rang. Apologize to Caleb, Olivia commanded. Tell him you sabotaged the test. Tell him you're sorry for trying to undermine his leadership. I laughed. It came out as a wet, ragged sound. Go to hell. Caleb leaned closer, his breath hot on my ear. She's gonna leave you in here, Nathan. She's gonna let me walk out with the patent rights, and you're gonna rot. You think she cares that you married her in secret? You're a dirty little secret she's about to wash off. I looked up at Olivia. Her jaw was tight. She hated confrontation unless she was the one dishing it out. You're really going to let him stand there? I asked her. You're going to let him rewrite history while you hold me down? He's already rewritten it, Olivia said. She nodded to Beltran. On his knees, Nathan. Now, or I'll have you escorted out of this building in a straitjacket. I looked at the cameras again. The red lights were steady. Recording. Streaming. My team. Marcus and Shun. They'd have the feeds by now. They'd have the logs. Everything was synced to the offsite audit platform I'd set up 6 months ago, right after Caleb started optimizing my code. I'd known this was coming. I just hadn't known it would hurt this much. Fine, I said. I stopped struggling. I let my body go limp under Soto's hand. I looked up at Olivia, letting her see the ice in my eyes. But you should know something, Liv. She raised an eyebrow, that haughty look she used when she thought she was winning. What's that? There are a lot of cameras in here today, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to fill the silent room. Make sure they're all on, because when I get up, and I will get up, I'm going to sue you for every patent you've ever touched. And I'm going to make sure every general in that viewing room sees exactly who they're handing $12 billion to. Olivia's expression flickered, just for a second. Doubt. But she crushed it. She looked at Soto. Keep him there until I say otherwise. She turned on her heel and walked toward the exit. Caleb hesitated. He looked down at me, his bravado fading now that Olivia wasn't looking. You're finished, he repeated, but it sounded hollow. Run, Caleb, I said, while you still can. He scoffed and followed her out. The heavy steel door clanged shut. Beltran and Soto held me for another minute before Soto finally lifted his hand off my neck. I pushed myself up slowly. My knees screamed. I wiped the blood from my lip with the back of my hand. I looked at the cameras one last time. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my key card, and snapped in half. I didn't need a door to walk out. I had the code to burn the whole house down. The parking garage smelled like oil and ozone. I leaned against my truck, pulling out my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Olivia. I blocked her number. I opened my email and forwarded the first of 3 documents to Sarah Vance, my lawyer in Denver. The subject line was simple: immediate cease and desist, patent portfolio Alpha 9. Then, I drafted the second email to the board of directors. Effective immediately, I resigned from my position as chief systems engineer. All licensing agreements for the 9 patents listed below are hereby terminated. I attached the list. 9 patents. 5 years of work. Gone. The third email was to Olivia's corporate address. Olivia, I've filed for divorce. My lawyers will be in touch. Don't bother replying. I hit send on all 3. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. Boss. We've got the logs. It's all there. Caleb's ID, the timestamp. 14/32/11, right before the drop. Good, I said. Send the packet to the FBI field office in Colorado Springs. Attention, Agent Ramirez. CC the DOD Inspector General. On it, Marcus said. He paused. You okay, man? We saw the feed from the boardroom. I'm better than okay, I said, looking at the glass tower of Sentinel Dynamics. I'm free. I got into my truck and tossed the key car has on a passenger seat. As I pulled out of the garage, I saw Olivia step out onto the executive balcony on the 12th floor. She was on her phone, her face a mask of fury. She looked down, saw my truck, and for a split second, our eyes met. I didn't honk. I didn't wave. I just kept driving, watching her shrink in the rearview mirror until she was nothing but a tiny, insignificant dot in a very expensive suit. By the time I hit the highway, the news alerts started popping up. Sentinel Dynamics, stock plummets amidst technical failure. I turned on the radio. The talking heads were speculating about software glitches and leadership instability. They didn't know the half of it. I pulled into a diner off the interstate. The hangar. It was a pilot spot. Quiet. I slid into a booth in the back and ordered a black coffee. The waitress, a grizzled woman named Marie who'd probably worked there since the 80s, gave me a once-over. Rough day, honey? You have no idea, I said. I opened my laptop. The emails were starting to bounce back. Olivia's lawyers were already in a frenzy. I could practically hear the panic in the digital silence. Without the patents, Sentinel couldn't legally operate a single drone. The $1, $2 billion contract would evaporate by morning. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. Brooks. Mr. Brooks, this is Agent Ramirez, FBI. I just received a rather extensive data packet from AM Chun. Evening, Agent, I said, stirring my coffee. Everything you need is in there. The logs, the video feeds, the financial records linking Caleb Reed to BlackRock Horizon. BlackRock Horizon? The Cayman firm? That's the one. They've been getting our proprietary algorithms for months. With Olivia's approval. Ramirez was silent for a beat. This is substantial. You're alleging corporate espionage and federal contract fraud? I'm alleging my wife, ex-wife, tried to frame me for sabotage to cover up her boyfriend's incompetence and her own greed, I said. And I'm alleging she used a stolen digital signature to forge patent assignments. Check the metadata on those files she's been waving around. You'll find the timestamp puts me 50 miles away at a conference center. We'll look into it, Ramirez said, his tone turning professional. Don't leave the state, Mr. Brooks. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I got a new lab to set up. I hung up as Marie dropped a plate of eggs in front of me. I wasn't hungry, but I needed the fuel. I looked out the window at the Rocky Mountains, sharp and clear against the twilight. 5 years. I'd given her 5 years of my life, my intellect, and my name. I'd hidden in the shadows so she could shine in the spotlight. I let her take the credit for my work because I believed in the company we were building. But I'd never let her have the patents. Those were my leverage, my insurance policy. And now, she'd cash them in for a one-way ticket to a prison cell. I picked up my fork and started eating. The eggs were cold, but they tasted like freedom. Outside, a news van sped past, heading towards Sentinel Dynamics. Let them camp out on her lawn. Let them ask her why the brilliant CEO was hiding behind a man she just forced to his knees. I finished my coffee and stood up, tossing a 20 on the table. I had a meeting with a real estate agent in an hour. Aerosafe Labs needed a home, and I needed to start calling the engineers I trusted, the ones Olivia was about to fire in her desperation. I walked out into the cool evening air. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of a secret marriage or a stolen legacy. I just felt light. Olivia thought she broke me today. She thought that by putting me on the floor, she'd secured her throne. But she'd forgotten one thing. The floor is where you find the foundations. And I was about to bury hers. I got back in my truck and headed north. The mountains stood tall, indifferent to the drama of men and women in glass towers. But I knew something they didn't. By this time tomorrow, those towers would be shaking, and I'd be the one holding the blueprints for the rebuild. The next morning, I woke up in a motel off Woodman Road. Cheap sheets, but my own. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Olivia. 23 emails. One text, sent at 3. No Lua nachts. Nathan, please. We can fix this. Just reinstate the patents. I'll handle Caleb. I'll tell them it was a misunderstanding. I deleted it. I drove to a small industrial park on the north side of town. The agent was waiting for me. A sharp-looking guy named David who looked like he'd just graduated college. Mr. Brooks? Place is small, but the zoning is perfect for aerospace RD. We walked through the empty warehouse. High ceilings, reinforced floors, and a secure server room in the back. It was a quarter of the size of Sentinel's flagship facility, but it was mine. No Caleb. No Olivia. Just space. I'll take it, I said. David looked surprised. Just like that? Just like that, I confirmed. I wrote him a check for the first 3 months' rent. My personal account, not the joint one Olivia had drained last night, trying to stop the bleeding. As we finalized the paperwork, my phone buzzed. Sarah Vance. Nathan, they're moving faster than I expected. The board is convening an emergency session. They've seen the divorce papers and the patent withdrawal. Olivia is trying to present those forged assignment docs, but the forensic accountants are already questioning the digital signatures. Let her, I said. She'll dig her own grave. Also, Sarah added, Agent Ramirez called. They've brought Caleb in for questioning. He's lawyered up, but Ramirez thinks he'll flip. He's looking at espionage charges. 20 years, minimum. Good, I said. I looked at the empty warehouse. The echoes of our footsteps sounded like the future. Make sure the press knows about the kneeling incident. Leak the unedited footage. I want the world to see what kind of person she is. I'll handle it, Sarah said. You stay low. Let me do the talking. I hung up and walked to the center of the warehouse. The sun streamed through the skylights, illuminating the dust motes in the air. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. 5 years of hiding. 5 years of letting her take the credit. It was over. The patents were mine. The truth was out. And Olivia was about to learn that you can't build an empire on a foundation of lies and expect it to survive the first earthquake. I heard a car pull up outside. I turned to see Marcus and Chun getting out of a battered Honda Civic. They were carrying boxes of equipment. Servers, monitors, tools. My team, the ones who'd stuck by me even when I told them to stay quiet. Marcus grinned, holding up a bottle of cheap champagne. Heard he got the place, boss. Figured we'd start moving the essentials. Chin nodded, his usual serious demeanor cracking a smile. The audit platform is still running. No one can touch the logs now. They're immutable. I looked at them. These two guys who'd been with me since the beginning, who'd watched Caleb take the credit and Olivia play the queen. They were my real legacy. Not the patents. Not the money. What's it to work, I said. We spent the morning setting up the server racks, running cables, and configuring the network. It was grueling, physical work, but it felt good. Honest. Every time I bent my knees. Still sore from yesterday. I felt a surge of resolve. Around noon, David the agent popped his head in. Mr. Brooks? There's a crowd forming outside. News vans. I wiped the sweat from my brow and walked to the loading dock. Sure enough, 3 local news crews were setting up. A reporter from KOAA spotted me and rushed over, a microphone extended. Mr. Brooks, can you comment on the allegations against Sentinel Dynamics and your involvement in the drone malfunction? I looked at the camera. I could see Olivia's face in my mind, probably watching this feed from her corner office, seething. I can confirm that the navigation systems in question were designed under my patents, I said clearly. I can also confirm that I have formally withdrawn those patents and resigned from Sentinel Dynamics effective yesterday. Any further use of my intellectual property is unauthorized and illegal. The reporter looked stunned. And the allegations that you sabotaged the test? I smiled a cold, hard smile. I suggest you ask Ms. Mercer why she felt the need to have me restrained and forced to the ground yesterday afternoon. Ask her why the server logs, which I understand are now in FBI custody, tell a very different story than the one she's selling. I turned and walked back into the warehouse, shutting the door on the flashing lights and shouted questions. Marcus was staring at me, wide-eyed. Dude, you just threw gasoline on the fire. I'm not throwing gasoline, I said, picking up a screwdriver. I'm lighting a match. There's a difference. Chun chuckled, plugging in a monitor. She's going to lose her mind. She already has, I said. I looked at the server blinking green. Now, let's finish this install. We've got a company to rebuild. And this time, we're doing it right. The rest of the day passed in a blur of code and calibration. By evening, the new network was online. The AeroSafe logo, a simple phoenix rising from circuit board, was projected onto the wall. I stood there, watching the logo pulse, and thought about Olivia. About the look on her face when she realized I wasn't coming back. When she realized that the man she'd forced to his knees was the only thing holding her world together. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt done. I picked up my phone and scrolled past the dozens of new notifications. One email caught my eye. It was from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line, please. I opened it. It was from Olivia. Nathan, I'm sorry. I panicked. I was trying to protect the company. I was trying to protect us. Please just come home. We can fix the patents. We can say it was a misunderstanding. I'll fire Caleb. I'll tell the board the truth. Just don't let them take me down. I'm begging you. Leave. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. There was no us anymore. There was only the truth. And the truth didn't kneel. I walked out to the loading dock and looked at the city lights. Somewhere in that skyline, Olivia was realizing that her empire was made of sand. And I was the tide coming in. I took a deep breath of the cool Colorado air and went back inside. We had work to do. The future wasn't going to build itself. And this time, I wasn't sharing the blueprints with anyone who'd stab me in the back. The phoenix on the wall glowed brighter. Yeah, we were just getting started. The motel room smelled like industrial cleaner and regret. I sat on the edge of the bed, the cheap polyester spread scratching my forearms, and watched the local news on mute. The ticker at the bottom scrolled past. Sentinel Dynamics CEO Olivia Mercer addresses technical anomaly in $1. To be DoD contract. Anomaly. That was a rich word for a catastrophic failure caused by a guy who thought bandwidth was a dental condition. My phone vibrated against the nightstand. Sarah Vance. I swiped to answer, keeping my eyes on the screen. Sarah, turn on channel 5, she said, her voice clipped and efficient. Mercer's doing damage control, and it's a train wreck. I grabbed the remote and unmuted it. Olivia stood behind a podium in the Sentinel lobby, her hair perfectly coiffed, her expression a mask of corporate solemnity. Yesterday's demonstration was subject to an internal review, she said, her gaze fixed on the teleprompter. We have identified a lapse in protocol by a senior engineer. We are confident in Mr. Reed's leadership moving forward and expect to reschedule the Ares drone validation within the week. Lapse in protocol, I repeated, laughing under my breath. She's calling my 9 patents a lapse. She won't be saying that for long, Sarah said. I just filed the patent revocation with the USPTO and served the injunction to Sentinel's general counsel. They have 60 minutes to cease all operations using your NavCore architecture before we start seizing assets. Almost on cue, my phone lit up with a call from a number I didn't recognize. Probably a burner. I declined it. Then another. And another. She's losing her mind, I noted. She's about to lose a lot more, Sarah replied. The FBI just raided Caleb's condo. Ramirez called me. They found a burner phone with encrypted messages to an offshore entity. BlackRock Horizon. I sat up straighter. The Cayman firm. Yeah, looks like Caleb's been selling snippets of your code for months. But here's the kicker. Olivia knew. There's an email thread where she tells him to sanitize the metadata before the transfer. I felt a cold knot tighten in my gut, but it wasn't surprise. It was confirmation. She didn't just want it gone. She wanted the IP clean for the sale. Exactly. Now listen. Her lawyers just released those permanent patent assignment docs to the press. They're claiming you signed over everything last month. They're trying to paint you as a disgruntled ex looking to extort the company. I walked to the small desk and opened my laptop. I pulled up the audit platform. Let them release them. I've got the originals. And I've got the keycard logs from the night she borrowed my digital signature. Prove it, Sarah challenged. Because the second those docs hit the news cycle, the DOJ is going to want to see proof of ownership. I tapped a few keys, bringing up the security footage from my home office on the night of January 12th. There she was, Olivia. She thought I was asleep. She used the key I kept on my ring, the one she claimed she needed for the supply chain audit. She plugged my tablet in, scanned my fingerprint while I was passed out in the bedroom, and signed the docs. I got the video, Sarah. High-res. Time-stamped. Geo-fenced. She used my biometrics while I was unconscious. That's not just forgery. That's identity theft. Silence on the line for a beat. Then Sarah let out a low whistle. That's a murder charge in a boardroom, Nathan. You ready to drop that? Not yet, I said. Let her double down. Let her tell the world those patents are hers. Then I'll show them exactly how she stole them. Ruthless, Sarah murmured. I like it. Okay, I'm sending the injunction over now. Expect a call from Ramirez soon. He's going to want to discuss witness protection or at least a formal statement regarding the espionage charges. I'm not hiding, I said. I'll meet him at the field office at 2. I want her to see me walking in there under my own power. I hung up as the news coverage cut to a live shot outside Sentinel's HQ. Olivia was exiting a town car, surrounded by a phalanx of security. A reporter shoved a microphone toward her. Ms. Mercer, Nathan Brooks claims you forged his digital signature. Is Sentinel Dynamics facing a patent crisis? Olivia didn't stop walking. She didn't even look at the camera, but I saw her jaw tighten. Mr. Brooks is currently under internal investigation for sabotage. Any documents bearing his signature are legally binding. We will pursue all available remedies against him and his false claims. Sabotage, I muttered. I dialed Ramirez's direct line. He picked up on the second ring. Brooks, Agent Ramirez, I'm on my way to your office. I assume you've seen the morning news? I've seen it, he said, his tone grim. Mercer's lawyers are already circling. They're claiming Caleb acted alone and that you're a scorned spouse looking for a payday. But we've got the BlackRock Horizon ledger. We know she approved the wire transfers. She didn't just approve them, I said, grabbing my jacket. She orchestrated them. She needed the Ares contract to close so BlackRock would inject capital into Sentinel before the quarterly report. She used me to build the tech, then used Caleb to sell it out from under me. Can you prove intent? I stepped out into the harsh Colorado sunlight. I can prove she used my signature without my consent. I can prove she ordered the deletion of the server logs after the crash. And I can prove she conspired to present false evidence to a federal agency by parading Caleb in front of the DOD as the lead engineer. Get here in 20, Ramirez said. We're bringing Caleb in for a second round. He's lawyered up, but he's scared. If we can flip him, he'll testify against her. I'll be there, I said. I ended the call and looked up at the Sentinel Tower, gleaming in the distance. It looked less like a fortress today and more like a glass cage. The FBI field office was colder than the motel. Ramirez led me into a small interview room, the kind with two-way glass and a scarred metal table. He slid a folder across to me. Caleb's financials. Look at the deposits from BlackRock. Every one of them corresponds with a major Sentinel milestone. Series B close? Deposit. Phase 1 contract award? Deposit. The day after your wedding anniversary? Another deposit. I flipped through the pages. The amounts were staggering. Hundreds of thousands. She was paying him to replace me, I said quietly. To erase my footprint. She was paying him to steal from you, Ramirez corrected. We got the chat logs. She told him to keep Nathan busy with legacy code while Caleb modernized the nav core. Modernized, meaning strip out the security protocols so BlackRock could reverse engineer it. I leaned back, the metal chair squeaking. She always said I was too paranoid about security. She used that against you, Ramirez said. Now, we need you to walk us through the logs. We need to show the court exactly when and where the data was exfiltrated. I pulled out my laptop and connected to their secure network. I navigated to the audit platform. Here, January 12th, 2. 17 data packet tagged navcore underscore v7 underscore update leaves the main server. Destination IP, Cayman Islands, masked through 3 proxies. But the packet header contains a unique identifier. My engineer Marcus's personal tag. He only uses that tag for internal testing. Caleb must have grabbed a test build and sent it out. Ramirez leaned in, studying the screen. Can you trace it back to Olivia's terminal? Give me 10 minutes, I said. I started typing, pulling up the access log for the executive suite. Here, esta 45 a.m. Olivia logs into the central repository. She accesses the test underscore builds directory. 2 minutes later, Caleb's terminal pings the same directory. Then the upload begins. She opened the door, Ramirez said. He walked through it. She held it open, I clarified, and she watched him walk out with the goods. Before Ramirez could respond, the door opened. A junior agent stuck his head in. Sir, Caleb's lawyer is asking for a deal. He says his client is willing to provide full cooperation against Ms. Mercer in exchange for immunity. Ramirez looked at me. Immunity for the thief or a bullet for the queen? Depends on what he's got, I said. If he's got her telling him to lie about the demo crash, that's conspiracy. If he's got her approving the transfer of IT-restricted tech, that's 20 years. Ramirez stood up. Stay here. I'm going to sit in on the interview. If he flips, we're going to need your logs as Exhibit A. I nodded, watching him leave. I looked back at the screen. The cursor blinked on the line, showing Olivia's login. Esta 45 a.m. She'd woken me up at 1:30 that morning, complaining about a migraine. She'd asked me for a glass of water. I gotten up, brought it to her, and she'd kissed me on the forehead, telling me to go back to sleep. While I was lying there, trusting her, she was stealing the keys to the kingdom. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nathan, please. I can explain. Meet me at the Brown Palace. No lawyers. Just us. Ooh. I stared at the text. The Brown Palace. Our favorite hotel, where we'd celebrated our first big contract. She was trying to drag me back into the past, into the nostalgia, to soften the blow. I typed back a single word. No. Then I blocked the number. The door opened again. Ramirez came back in, a grim smile on his face. He flipped. Caleb just admitted Olivia ordered him to modify the drone parameters to make the demo look better. When it crashed, she told him to blame you. She gave him the talking points for the press conference. And he paused for effect. She authorized the BlackRock transfers personally. We got all on tape. I closed the laptop. So what happens now? Now, Ramirez said, sitting back down, we arrest her. But we need you to stay available. Your testimony is crucial. And we need those logs authenticated by a third-party auditor. I'll authenticate them, I said, but I want something in return. Name it. When this is over, I want Sentinel's RD division dismantled. I want my engineers, Marcus, Chun, the ones who stayed loyal, to have first crack at the talent. I'm starting Aerosafe Labs, and I'm not hiring anyone who stayed at Sentinel out of fear. Ramirez nodded slowly. Fair enough. The government will need a new contractor anyway. We can't work with a company run by a felon. Your new outfit might be the only game in town. I stood up, extending my hand. Then let's go get the queen. Ramirez shook my hand firmly. Let's go. As we walked out of the room, I caught a glimpse of myself in the two-way glass. I looked tired, but my eyes were clear. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel like I was living in someone else's shadow. I was standing in my own light, and it felt damn good. The arrest happened at 4:00 p.m. I watched it from a coffee shop across the street from Sentinel. The FBI moved in fast. 3 black SUVs blocking the entrances. Ramirez led the team inside. 20 minutes later, they brought her out. She wasn't in handcuffs yet, but her face was pale. She was screaming at Ramirez, her voice carrying faintly through the glass. This is a mistake. Nathan is lying. Those patents are mine. I signed them. Ramirez didn't argue. He just gestured to an agent who stepped forward and finally clicked the cuffs on her wrists. The cameras flashed. The reporters shouted questions. Olivia looked directly at the coffee shop. Even through the tinted windows, I felt her gaze. She was looking for me, looking for the man she'd broken. But I wasn't broken. I was the one holding the hammer. I stood up, left the 20 on the table, and walked out. I didn't look back at the tower. I didn't look back at her. I had a meeting with Marcus and Chun at the new warehouse. We had a company to build. As I drove north, my phone rang. Sarah, it's done, she said. The injunction is enforced. Sentinel stock is frozen. The board has suspended all operations, and Olivia is currently being processed at the county jail. Good, I said. Make sure the kneeling footage is leaked to every major network tonight. I want the world to see what she did. Already in motion, Sarah replied. You're going to be a very wealthy man, Nathan, and a very dangerous enemy. I'm counting on it, I said. I hung up and turned up the radio. A news bulletin interrupted the music. Breaking news. Sentinel Dynamics CEO Olivia Mercer arrested on federal charges, including contract fraud, espionage, and obstruction of justice. The arrest follows the dramatic resignation of Chief Engineer Nathan Brooks, who alleges Mercer forged his signature to steal proprietary technology. I listened to the report, my grip tightening on the wheel. They were saying my name now, not as the secret husband, not as the silent partner, but as the victim, and soon as the victor. I pulled into the industrial park. Marcus and Chun were waiting by the loading dock, the U-Haul packed with our gear. They saw my face and grinned. Boss, Marcus said, clapping me on the shoulder. Heard the news. Looks like the king is dead. Long live the king, Chun added, pushing up his glasses. I looked at the empty warehouse behind them. Our new home. The king isn't dead, I said, unlocking the door. The king just stopped kneeling. We walked inside. The space echoed with possibility. I walked to the center of the room and looked up at the dusty skylight. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Tomorrow, we'd hang the aerosafe sign. Tomorrow, we'd start coding. Tomorrow, we'd begin the long process of reclaiming what was stolen. But tonight, I just stood there, breathing in the scent of fresh concrete and freedom. Olivia was sitting in a cell, probably still wondering how it all went wrong. She'd never understand. She'd never understand that you can't build a throne on the backs of the people you betray. Because when they stand up, the throne crumbles. And I was just getting started. The warehouse smelled like ozone and fresh sawdust. I stood on a stepladder, drilling the Aerosafe Labs logo into the drywall, when Marcus kicked the rolling office chair across the concrete floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Boss, you're going to want to see this, he said, his voice tight. He spun his laptop around. On the screen, KOA was running a live feed from the Sentinel Dynamics lobby. Olivia was back. She'd posted bail, $2 million in cash, according to the ticker, and she was strutting toward the elevators like she still owned the place. Her hair was immaculate, but her eyes were bloodshot. She looked like a woman who'd spent the night in a holding cell, trying to figure out which law she could bend to get her stock options back. She's got brass balls, I'll give her that, I said, jumping down from the ladder. I wiped the sawdust off my jeans. What's the play? Board meeting, Marcus said, refreshing the feed. 10 o'clock. Her uncle, Arthur Mercer, called it last night while she was in the slammer. He's taking back the chairmanship. I grabbed a Coke from the cooler. Arthur's a viper, but he's a smart viper. He won't go down with her ship. 15 minutes later, we were streaming the meeting. The Sentinel boardroom was packed. I recognized the faces. VCs from Palo Alto, the lead counsel from DC, and Arthur Mercer sitting at the head of the table like a judge at a sentencing hearing. Olivia stood at the far end, flanked by two new lawyers I didn't recognize. Let's dispense with the formalities, Arthur said. His voice was gravelly, the result of 60 years of cheap cigars and cheaper whiskey. He didn't look at Olivia. He looked at the court stenographer. This meeting is called to order to address the immediate removal of Olivia Mercer as CEO and the appointment of an interim director pending the SEC and FBI investigations. Olivia slammed her palm on the table. You don't have the votes, Arthur. I built this company, and I have the patent assignments. Nathan signed them. Arthur finally looked at her. His stare was glacial. You built this company on Nathan Brooks's back, and those assignments are currently being analyzed by 3 different forensic accounting firms. Preliminary reports indicate the digital signature was harvested using his biometrics while he was unconscious. That's not a contract, Olivia. That's a felony. One of the VCs, a guy named Harrison from Sequoia, leaned forward. Olivia, we've seen the FBI's evidence. The transfers to BlackRock Horizon. The deleted logs. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking about the valuation. She snapped. She was starting to sweat. A droplet rolled down her temple, ruining her makeup. BlackRock was going to lead our Series C. We needed the Ares contract to close. Nathan was going to ruin it with his paranoia about security protocols. Caleb was just trying to help me streamline. Caleb is a thief and a spy. Arthur cut in. He slid a manila folder across the table to her. And he's wearing a wire. The FBI picked him up an hour ago. He's already confessed to transferring ITER restricted tech to BlackRock at your direction. He says you told him to sanitize the logs and bury Nathan. Olivia's face went white. She looked at her lawyers. They were avoiding her eyes. He's lying, she whispered. He's trying to save himself. He's already saved himself, Arthur said. He's got immunity. You don't. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time, Olivia. Did you authorize the transfer of restricted technology to an offshore entity? She hesitated. For a second, I thought she might actually tell the truth. But then her pride kicked in. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and looked Arthur dead in the eye. I authorized the optimization of our market position. If that means leveraging international partnerships to ensure the long-term viability of Sentinel Dynamics, then yes. I did what was necessary. Arthur didn't blink. He looked at the board's secretary. Call the vote. It took 30 seconds. 8 votes for removal. 1 abstention. 0 for Olivia. Arthur didn't waste time. He picked up the gavel, a heavy brass thing our grandfather had commissioned, and brought it down once. Thwack. Olivia Mercer, you are hereby removed as CEO of Sentinel Dynamics, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. Your shares are frozen pending the outcome of the federal investigation. You are not to contact any employees, clients, or government liaisons. Do I make myself clear? Olivia didn't move. She just stood there, shaking. Then she lunged forward, grabbing the edge of the table. You can't do this. I'm a Mercer. This is my company. Nathan is nothing without me. He's just a programmer. I'm the visionary. Arthur stood up slowly. He was an old man, but he was built like a brick shithouse. He leaned over the table, getting right at her face. You're not a visionary, Olivia. You're a thief. And you're not a Mercer anymore. Not after this. Get her out of here. 2 security guards. Not Beltran and Soto. They've been fired. Step forward. One of them took her arm. She yanked it away, but she didn't fight. She just stood there, looking around the table at the men and women who had backed her for years. They looked away. Every single one of them. As they led her to the door, she stopped. She looked directly into the camera lens. Nathan, she screamed. Nathan, I know you're watching. You bastard. You did this. You ruined everything. I muted the TV. Well, I said to Marcus, she's officially lost the plot. She's lost everything, he corrected. He pulled up a new tab. The kneeling video just hit TMZ. Then Fox News. Now CNN. It's everywhere. I turned the volume back up. The footage was raw, unedited. You could see Caleb smirk, the way he kicked my knee. You could hear Olivia's voice, cold and sharp. Neil, Nathan, now. And then, the part that was killing her online. Me looking up at the camera and saying, there are a lot of cameras here today, Liv. Make sure they're all on. The internet was having a field day. Hashtag Kneel for Caleb was trending. So was Raute Patent Queen. The comments were brutal. She thought he was a rug to wipe her feet on, and he turned out to be the floor. Never make an engineer mad. We don't yell. We delete your entire existence. My phone buzzed. Sarah Vance. Did you see it? She asked, skipping the greeting. I'm watching it now, I said. The board just threw her out. Good, because the DOJ just indicted her. Conspiracy to commit federal contract fraud, illegal export of defense technology, obstruction of justice, and aggravated identity theft. The FBI is on their way back to her house to rearrest her now. No bail this time. She's a flight risk. She won't run, I said. She's too busy trying to figure out how to spin this as my fault. Let her try, Sarah said. Ramirez has Caleb on tape. He's got the logs. He's got the emails. And thanks to that video, he's got a motive. She's going away for 20 years, minimum. The only question is whether she pleads out or takes it to trial and gets life. I hung up as Marcus's phone started ringing off the hook. Then Chen's. Then mine. Emails from Sentinel employees. Linkage messages on Signal. Marcus, is the offer still good? Boss, we're clearing out our desks. Can we bring our servers? Nathan, It's Lisa from Calms. I'm done with Olivia. I want in. I looked at Marcus and Chun. Start sorting resumes. Anyone who stayed loyal to her after the kneeling incident? Trash. Anyone who spoke out? Interview. Anyone who was in our D before Caleb showed up? Hire them immediately. What about the rest? Chun asked. Set up a tent in the parking lot. I said. We're having a job fair, but I'm only hiring the best. And I'm only hiring people who understand that at AeroSafe, we don't kneel to anyone. Not to CEOs, not to the government, and sure as hell not to some pretty boy with a stolen PowerPoint. By noon, the parking lot was full. Engineers, coders, even a few of the junior finance guys. I stood on the tailgate of my truck, looking out at the crowd. These were the people Olivia had cast aside, the ones she'd called legacy costs and deadweight. I didn't give a speech. I just held up a hard drive. Inside this is the Navcore 9. Zero architecture. Clean, secure, uncompromised. Sentinel is finished. The government is going to need a new contractor for the Ares program. If you want to be part of that, if you want to build something that doesn't crumble the second a thief touches it, then grab an application. If you want to keep waiting for Olivia Mercer to throw you a bone, there's the gate. They didn't hesitate. They swarmed the tables we'd set up. Within an hour, we had 100 new applications. I hired 40 on the spot. Late that afternoon, a black Suburban pulled up. Agent Ramirez got out. He walked through the crowd of engineers, nodding at a few of the familiar faces from Sentinel. He climbed up onto the tailgate with me. Quite a turnout, he said, watching the new hires carry boxes into the warehouse. They're good people, I said. They just had a bad boss. Speaking of bad bosses, Ramirez said, his expression grim. Olivia's lawyering up with the big guns. They're claiming the video was selectively edited and that you coerced Caleb into taking the fall. They're also arguing that the patents were a marital asset and that you illegally withdrew them to sabotage the company. I laughed. Marital asset? She wants to claim my brain as a marital asset? Let her try. Sarah will tear her apart. Sarah's good, Ramirez agreed. But this is going to be a circus. The media is already camped outside your gate. You're the face of the wronged genius now, Nathan. You need to be careful. No more kneeling comments. No more taunts. Let the justice system work. I looked at him. I'm not taunting, agent. I am stating facts. She knelt me. I stood up. Now she's falling. That's not a taunt. That's gravity. Ramirez allowed himself a small smile. Fair enough. Just keep your head down. We've got enough evidence to sink a battleship, but her lawyers are going to try to drag this out. They'll subpoena your logs, your emails, your text messages. They'll try to paint you as a jealous husband who sabotaged his wife's company out of spite. They can try, I said, but every keystroke they'll find proves I was the one keeping the lights on. And every log they'll find prove she was the one turning them off. Ramirez nodded. He looked out at the warehouse, at the glowing AeroSafe sign. This place is going to be under a microscope. Nathan, the government is going to be watching your every move. One mistake, one security lapse, and they'll hand the contract to someone else. I don't make mistakes, I said. I build systems that don't fail. And I build companies that don't kneel. Ramirez clapped me on the shoulder. Glad to hear it. Because if you do this right, AeroSafe is going to be the most important defense contractor in the Rockies. And if you do it wrong, Olivia Mercer wins from a prison cell. He left after that. I stayed on the tailgate, watching the sun set over the mountains. The new hires were inside, already setting up workstations, already debating code. It felt right. It felt like mine. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. Probably Olivia's lawyer, or maybe a burner she'd managed to get her hands on. I opened it. Nathan, I'm looking at 20 years. 20 years, Nathan. For what? For trying to build something? You're going to let them do this to me? To us? I'm still your wife. I'm still the mother of your future children. Don't let them take me. Please, just tell them it was a misunderstanding. I'll sign over everything. Just don't let me rot in a cell. Leave. I read it twice. I thought about the 5 years I'd spent in the shadows. The 5 years I'd spent listening to her take credit for my work. The 5 years I'd spent sleeping next to a woman who saw me as a tool to be used and discarded. Then I thought about the floor, the concrete, the weight of Caleb's foot on my knee, the coldness in her eyes as she told me to stay down. I typed back a single word, justice. Then I blocked the number and tossed the phone onto the seat of my truck. I jumped down from the tailgate and walked into the warehouse. The hum of the servers was a symphony. The click of keyboards was a heartbeat. This was my world now. Not hers. Mine. And no one. Not Olivia, not Caleb, not the FBI, and certainly not a jury was going to take it from me again. I walked over to the server rack and logged into the audit platform. Everything was green, secure, immutable. The logs were locked. The truth was safe. I looked up at the AeroSafe logo, glowing bright against the steel. It wasn't just a name. It was a promise. A promise that we wouldn't fail. A promise that we wouldn't kneel. And a promise that the people who tried to bury us would be the ones left in the dark. Outside, the news vans were still there, their satellites aimed at the sky. Let them watch. Let them wait. I had work to do, and this time, I was doing it for me. The courthouse steps were slick with morning dew and swarming with press. I leaned against the hood of my truck, parked illegally in the loading zone, and watched the circus through the tinted windshield. Sarah Vance was already at the top of the stairs, fielding microphones like a pro. She spotted me and gave a subtle shake of her head. Not yet. I checked my watch. 9:02 a.m. Olivia was late. Usually, she was the first one in the room, demanding the judge's attention before the bailiff even finished his coffee. Maybe she chickened out, Marcus said, sliding into the passenger seat with 2 gas station coffees. He handed me one. Or maybe she's enjoying her last few minutes of freedom before they slap the orange jumpsuit on her. She's not enjoying anything, I said, taking a sip. The coffee was burnt, but it was hot. She's calculating. She's looking for a way to twist this into my fault. As if on cue, the side door of the courthouse burst open. 2 U.S. Marshals came out first, clearing a path through the reporters. Then Olivia emerged. She wasn't in cuffs yet, but she wasn't wearing her usual Armani armor either. It was a dark gray pantsuit, dowdy, matronly. Her hair was pulled back, so tight it looked like it was trying to escape her skull. She wasn't looking at the cameras. She was scanning the crowd. Her eyes locked onto my truck. She said something to her lead attorney, a high-priced shark from D.C., named Gruber, and peeled off from the marshals. Gruber tried to grab her elbow, but she shrugged him off. She walked toward me with that stiff-backed gait she used when she was trying to project authority, but was actually terrified. Nathan, she said when she was 5 feet away. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been screaming in a pillow all night. We need to talk. I didn't move. I took another sip of coffee. Talk. Gruber hustled up behind her, panting slightly. Mr. Brooks, please. This is highly inappropriate. We have a court appearance. Shut up, Gruber, Olivia snapped. She didn't take her eyes off me. Nathan, look at this. Look at what you've done. 20 years, Nathan. 20 years. For what? Because I made you kneel for 5 minutes? You made me kneel for Caleb, I corrected. You made me kneel so a thief could steal my life's work. The 5 minutes is just the part you can see. The 5 years before that, that was you kneeling me every time you took credit for my patents in a boardroom. I was protecting the company. She hissed. She took a step closer, lowering her voice so the cameras couldn't catch it. 3,000 employees, Nathan. 3,000 families who relied on Sentinel for their mortgages, their kids' college funds. And you just pulled the rug out because your ego was bruised. I set the coffee cup on the hood of the truck. The ceramic clicked against the metal. Don't you dare talk to me about ego, Olivia. You didn't care about the employees. You cared about the stock price. You cared about the cover story. The self-made CEO who didn't need her husband's brains to succeed. You hid our marriage because my name on the patents made you look weak. You hid my role because my face on the news made you look irrelevant. I made you relevant, she shouted. She forgot about the cameras for a second. Spit flew from her lips. I gave you a platform. I took your messy code and turned it into a brand. And this is how you repay me? By burning it all down? I'm not burning it down, I said, leaning in just enough that she could see the lack of emotion in my eyes. I'm just stopping you from setting it on fire to keep yourself warm. Gruber tugged her arm. Olivia, please. The judge is waiting. We need to stick to the plea deal. A plea deal? I interrupted, looking at Gruber. She's pleading out? I thought she was innocent. I thought I was the jealous saboteur. Olivia's face crumpled. For a second, the mask slipped, and I saw the woman I'd married. The one who used to laugh at my bad jokes. But then it hardened again. I'm pleading because I don't want to give you the satisfaction of a trial, she whispered. I'm pleading because I know you've already won. You've got the company, the patents, the engineers. You've got everything. But you don't have me, Nathan. You never did. I had you, I said. I had you for 5 years. And every one of those years, you were looking for a way to trade me in for a newer model. Caleb was just the one you picked. The fact that he was a criminal and a moron, that's on you. She flinched. Actually flinched. Like I'd slapped her. You're a cold son of a bitch. You know that? I'll learn from the best, I said. I picked up my coffee again. Now go plead guilty, Olivia. Go tell the judge how you forged my signature, how you sold defense secrets to BlackRock, and how you ordered Caleb to lie about the drone crash. Tell them how you told the security guards to hold me down. And when you're sitting in that cell tonight, think about this. You weren't protecting the company. You were just hoping that if you got me low enough, the patents would stay down too. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. That's not how it was. It's exactly how it was, I said. You didn't want a partner, Olivia. You wanted a pedestal. And you found out the hard way that pedestals don't hold themselves up. Gruber finally managed to pull her away. Come on, Olivia. Let's go. Don't give him the last word. But she dug her heels in one last time. She looked back at me over her shoulder, her eyes filling with tears that she refused to let fall. I still love you, Nathan. No, I said, loud enough for the nearest camera to pick it up. You love what I built for you. There's a difference. And you burned it trying to claim it was yours. That broke her. She turned away, her shoulders shaking, and let Gruber lead her back toward the doors. The reporters were shouting questions. Ms. Mercer, any comment on the kneeling video? And Mr. Brooks, will you be pursuing the civil case? But I ignored them. I watched Olivia disappear back into the courthouse, a ghost retreating into the shadows where she belonged. Sarah walked over, lighting a cigarette despite the no smoking signs everywhere. She took a long drag. Nicely done. That last line, that's going to be on every news reel tonight. Good, I said. Let her hear it on repeat in her cell. She's taking the deal, Sarah said, exhaling smoke. 20 years, no parole. She'll be eligible for a reduced sentence in 15 if she behaves. But in a federal pen, she won't behave. She'll try to run the prison library like a boardroom and end up in solitary by Christmas. I looked at the courthouse. The marble columns looked like bars from this angle. She'll spend the first year trying to figure out how to appeal based on emotional distress or marital coercion. She'll blame me. She'll blame Caleb. She'll blame the FBI. She'll never blame herself. Let her, Sarah said. It'll keep her busy. Meanwhile, you've got a company to run. The DOD called this morning. They're fast-tracking the AeroSafe certification. You're looking at a $500 million contract for the Phoenix array by the end of the quarter. I nodded. Hire the Sentinel people we talked about. The ones from our D who didn't jump on our bandwagon. Give them a raise. Give them equity. I want them to know that at AeroSafe, the only thing they kneel for is the truth. And the truth is, Sarah said, flicking the cigarette onto the pavement, you're the only one who never knelt. Everyone else, Caleb, the board, even Olivia, they all bent the knee to something. Money, power, fear. You just stood there. I knelt once, I said, remembering the weight of Caleb's foot on my knee. But I got back up, and I made sure the floor was concrete so everyone could hear the impact. Sarah laughed. A dry, raspy sound. You're a scary man, Nathan Brooks. In a good way. I'll draft the press release. AeroSafe Labs secures landmark contract. Former Sentinel CEO begins federal sentence. How's that sound? Perfect, I said. I pushed off the truck and tossed the empty coffee cup into a nearby bin. I've got a meeting with Marcus and Shun. We're finalizing the Phoenix prototype. I want it ready for the static fire test next week. Go save the world, Nathan, Sarah said, heading back toward the chaos. Just try not to enjoy it too much. I didn't reply. I got into my truck and pulled away from the curb, ignoring the cameras and shouts. I drove north toward the industrial park, toward the warehouse that didn't smell like perfume and lies, toward the hum of servers and the click of keyboards. When I walked in, the team was already there. Marcus was at the whiteboard, sketching out a new algorithm. Chun was buried in a server rack, his legs sticking out. Lisa from comms was on the phone with a supplier, her voice sharp and efficient. They looked up when I entered. No applause, no cheers, just a nod. A collective acknowledgement that the storm had passed, and we were still standing. Status? I asked. Marcus capped the marker. Phoenix is green across the board. We're ready for the DOD inspection on Friday. Chin slid out from under the rack, wiping grease off his hands. Audit platform is locked. Immutable. Even if Olivia had a hacker in her cell, they couldn't touch it now. Lisa hung up the phone. Press is eating up the kneeling narrative. We're getting 300 applications an hour, mostly from Sentinel refugees. I've filtered out the Caleb types. I looked around the room, at the glowing Arrow Safe logo, at the servers blinking green, at the team that had chosen loyalty over a paycheck. This was the empire Olivia had tried to burn. This was the foundation she tried to bury me under. Good, I said. Keep it tight. Keep it honest. And remember, we don't kneel. Not to the government, not to the media, and definitely not to someone who thinks a signature on a piece of paper is worth more than the person who wrote the code. I walked to my office, a glass cube at the back of the warehouse, and closed the door. I sat down at my desk and looked at the framed photo of the Rocky Mountains on the wall. I didn't need a view of the city. I didn't need a penthouse suite. I just needed this. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Olivia Mercer sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. I clicked it. The article quoted the judge. Ms. Mercer's betrayal of public trust and the attempted framing of her husband represent a profound failure of ethics and leadership. This sentence reflects the severity of her crimes. I scrolled down. There was a quote from Gruber. Ms. Mercer maintains her innocence and will be exploring all avenues of appeal. I smiled. Let her appeal. Let her spend the next decade trying to convince a panel of judges that she was the victim. They'd read the logs. They'd seen the video. They'd heard Caleb's testimony. She was done. I closed the article and opened my email. 300 unread messages. Most of them were congratulations from engineers I'd respected for years. A few were threats from Olivia's remaining supporters. One was from Sarah. Deal is done. She's in the system. Time to build. I replied with a single word. Building. Then I opened the Phoenix Code. Line after line of clean, elegant logic. No backdoors. No hidden exploits. Just technology designed to save lives, not steal them. As I started typing, I heard a knock on the glass. Marcus was standing there, holding a bottle of cheap champagne. He mind popping the cork. I nodded. He came in, followed by Chun and Lisa. They gathered around my desk, and Marcus poured the champagne into 4 chipped mugs. To the floor, Marcus said, raising his mug. To the truth, Chun added. To never kneeling again, Lisa finished. I raised my mug. To the foundation. We clinked mugs. The sound was dull, imperfect, but it was ours. I took a sip. The champagne was warm and flat, but it tasted like victory. I looked around the room, at the team, at the servers, at the logo glowing on the wall. This was the aftermath. This was the world after Olivia. And it was better, harder maybe, colder definitely, but real. Outside, the sun was setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the warehouse floor. In a few hours, the news vans would leave the courthouse. In a few days, Olivia would be processed into the federal system. In a few weeks, AeroSafe would sign the contract that would make us the new standard for defense navigation. But right now it was just us, the engineers, the builders, the ones who didn't need to kneel because we were too busy holding up the sky. I set the mug down and turned back to the code. There was work to be done. The Phoenix didn't fly itself, and I had a feeling the sky was just the beginning.